Well, we're back again for another episode. Today we're going to install the arrow rest on the Elite Ritual. Now this arrow rest that I'm using here is one that I have used on another bow in the past, so the cord length has actually already been cut and shorter than it would normally come if I'm just taking it right out of the box. This arrow rest is an Elite arrow rest, and it's actually made by QAD for Elite. And one of the things I really like about this arrow rest, among numerous things for hunting, when it comes to the tuning side of this arrow rest, it actually has measurements for your center shot already marked on the arrow rest. So it's very quick, very easy for you Elite dealers out there that carry Elite product. I'm sure you're already aware of all that, so when you throw that on the bow, you're doing a quick tune-up for someone when they bought the bow. That really helps because you can just get right to where you're going right away. And this actually has marks for 3/4 inch, 13/16, and 7/8. Now some of these bows run as far out as 15/16 or even a full 1 inch measurement from the riser to the center of the arrow. But the arrow rest goes out to 7/8 of an inch, or at least it's marked for 7/8 of an inch. You can take it further if you would like. So there's nothing really tricky about putting these arrow rests on. They're actually very simple. Obviously we've already got this bow ready to go as far as the timing and the draw weight, the draw length, the feel, all that's been taken care of. So the next thing to do is to begin putting on the equipment. Now, something I want to mention about these arrow rests, this particular arrow rest has a brake installed in it. So when it flips down, it doesn't flip all the way down just hard. It actually has a brake, so as soon as it gets to the bottom, it stops and stops its kickback also, because some arrow rests will have what they call kickback, which is when it hits the bottom, it kicks back up. So it actually may be clearing your fletching as far as getting out of the way, but the kickback is just enough to catch the back of the arrow as it comes through. So that's something you don't have to worry about with this QAD fall away. I get questions from time to time about noise levels. People asking, you know, what's wrong with this, or how come my bow seems loud, or whatever. A lot of times it's something as simple and as basic as installing the arrow rest. Now this particular rest, because of the brake that I just mentioned, it can be set up to where when the rest is completely down, that it doesn't have to touch the shelf of the bow. And that's actually the way I choose to set these up. So what I do initially, I start with the arrow rest where I have some elevation adjustment, and I also want to check and just make sure that I've started pretty close to my center shot measurement that I'm going to be at. And when I put the arrow rest on, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that the launcher clears the shelf when it's completely lowered in its lowest position. So as you screw the arrow rest on, again, like I said, there's nothing tricky to this. You basically just screw it on. I give myself just a little bit of room between the arrow rest and the riser itself, so there's no vibration there where the arrow rest bumps up against the riser. Once you get it good and tight, then it has a lockdown screw on the side where you can ensure yourself that this arrow rest is not going to move, because the lockdown screw locks nice and tight. As I've mentioned before, I've set up and tuned several of these Ritual bows already, and I know that I tuned one for myself earlier this year, and it tuned very well at about 7/8 to 15/16 on the center shot measurement. So I'm going to go ahead and set this one at about 7/8 to 15/16. That way I'll have a good start. So my center shot is now set. I've got the elevation set where it is not touching the shelf, the launcher blade on its way down. You can see the brake actually working as I flick the arrow rest up and down like that. So the next step is to put the bow in the press, relax the cable where I can separate it and put my cord through it. Now there are a lot of ways to do this. A lot of arrow rests come with a mechanism that attaches to the cable, looks like a little football, and you can adjust it up and down the cable wherever you want it to be. Some people actually just tie the cable on or tie the cord onto the cable, like with a lark's head knot, which would be similar to the same knot that they use for tying a D-loop. But personally myself, I like to split the cable and I like to put the cord through the cable, and then it's easy for me to adjust from that position the length of the cord and where I want it. Now I serve my cable in because that ensures me that it's not going to go anywhere, and I like the security of that. You don't have to serve it in if you have a big enough knot on the back. Trust me, there's so much pressure on these cables, it's not going to come out unless you rip it out some way or another where it gets hung. But I suggest putting it in the press and relaxing the cable and putting the cord through the cable. QAD recommends that you attach the cord at least 3 inches below where the arrow rest is located. Now, going back to this Elite Ritual bow and the way it's designed, it has an LTR roller guard system on it. So the cables are served where they roll through that cable guard system. Well, the cool thing about this is, from every one that I've seen so far, is the bottom of the serving on the cable that's closest to the arrow rest, which by the way is the cable that's going to operate when the bow is cycling in a downward direction. So that's good too. That's the direction you need to go in order for the arrow rest to actually raise up. So you can't attach your cord to either cable. You have to attach it to the cable that's actually moving in a downward motion when the bow is being drawn. So in this case, it's the cable that's closest to you, or the cable that's closest to the arrow rest. And as I was mentioning before about the cord being about 3 inches below where it attaches to the cable and the arrow rest, the bottom of this serving is actually straight up 3 inches. I just measured this a second ago, and it's 3 inches from the bottom of the arrow rest. So that's perfect. Perfect place for me to run the cord through the cable and attach it right there. I know not everyone is going to be setting up a ritual just for hunting. I know several people that are using them for 3D, and people are using them for target, especially the shorter draw length shooters. So I've been questioned and asked to also install a blade type arrow rest on the bow. Well, there are so many different brands and models of blade type arrow rest. I would love to go through and show you every one, but number one, I don't have all of them. Number two, I think it's pointless to show you every arrow rest and how it sets up on the bow. But I will tell you this. The setup that I would use on this particular bow is no different than any of my other bows that I shoot for Elite, like the Victory 37s, the Victory 39s, the Victory X that I'm using now, the Echelon 39 or 37. All of these I basically set up the same. And I don't think it's as technical as all of you try and make it out to be. It's actually a pretty simple process. You have an arrow rest hole, or what they call a burger button hole, that's on the riser. Now, a lot of people will tell you it needs to be set where the arrow actually goes right through the burger button. Or some people will say, well, the bow aims better for me if it's higher, if it's above the hole, or it aims better if it's below the hole. I'm here to tell you it's really not that big of a deal. If it does aim better for you higher than the burger button hole, that's fine. Absolutely fine. If that's where the bow aims best for you, that's probably where you're going to get your best performance, because it suits you better. When you're setting up these bows, one of the things you have to keep in mind is you're setting it up for you, not for me, not for someone else, but you're doing it for you. I'm going to give you the basic rules of setting this up so you can see exactly how I would do it. And again, it's almost the same as setting up this fall away arrow rest. I would set the nock height to where it runs about through the center of the burger button hole to start with. And then also I would set the center shot at about 15/16 or 7/8, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I would start tuning the bow from that position. Now, there are other factors that are involved in that, but those factors would actually be worked out as you get further through the tuning process and not so much in just the installation. So we're at the bow press now, and I'm gonna relax the cable here. Again, I'm using the cable that's closest to the arrow rest, that's moving in a downward position. And I'm splitting this cable, and again, this is something that you don't have to do perfectly. Preferably, if you could get exact split on the cable here, that would be great. But if you can't, it's not detrimental to the success of whether this will work or not. Let me zoom in here and see if I can get this cleared up a little bit so you can see a little bit better. Okay, and you can see I've got the cable split, and the cord is now running through the cable. And something that we're going to do here in just a second, I'll have to set the timing so when you draw the bow back that the arrow rest actually comes to full position, and also will allow itself to flip down and out of the way when you shoot. But something I wanted to show you is here, you see this this serving right here, and the cable is unserved right here. So this goes in between, and the only motion that you're going to get, unless there's hooks on something on your way to the stand or something, would be pulling up. So you're already against this serving right here, so technically it's not going to move up any further. When I'm finished, when I have everything done, I'll actually put some serving around the bottom of this too, just so this stays tight around this cable. But until then, I'm going to leave it alone just like this. Another tidbit of information that I like to do when I'm setting up my fall-away rest that have a cord like this, notice how I have the cable split and the cord is actually going straight out this direction. You can get this cord put between the cable in lots of different places, where it's like this, or even running back towards you that direction, which is no good in my opinion. I like it where it's facing outward like that right there. That way that it's not getting in the way of my hand when I'm getting into the grip, and naturally it wants to be out of my way. So that's a very good, to me that's a very good setup. Setting the cord timing is not ridiculously difficult either. I typically do this without using my draw board or my hooter shooter. I just draw the bow back and I watch the arrow rest. I watch the marks on the arrow rest, because on the QAD it has 2 marks that need to line up exactly when the arrow rest actually starts lifting. And when those 2 marks line up, that means the arrow rest is actually engaged to be able to flip down and out of the way when you shoot the bow. So you just look for that, and when that actually comes up right close to the end of your draw cycle, then you know you're set up good enough in order for it to fall out of the way. Now, there's lots of different types of fallaways. There's the limb drivens. There are the cable driven like this one, but they operate differently in a manner where they don't have anything that actually engages in order to make them flip down. In other words, they're already spring driven, so when you draw the bow back, they're only going to rise as far as they can rise. Those are a little bit more temperamental when it comes to setting the cord length and the cord placement. But this arrow rest is very simple to use, very simple to set up, which is one of the reasons why I like it, and it works very, very well. So let's look at getting this set. So what I'm going to do, again, like I said, I've got the cord that is in the cable where it's loose. So I'm just playing with it back and forth right now to find the distance that it needs to be in order for this arrow rest to rise up completely and hit the even mark and then release and allow itself to fall out of the way. So I draw the bow back and I'm watching those marks. All right, that hit the mark really quick and I'm about 2/3 drawn, so I'm going to want more cord length. So I'm just going to keep pulling this cord length until I get it right. Let me reset the arrow rest. I want it coming to full height at about 3/4 draw, maybe even 7/8 draw. That right there is perfect. It's engaging the arrow rest all the way down. The marks are actually hitting each other. So that's the full length that I want to go. I'm going to burn the end of this rope cord, make it nice and big so it doesn't pull through. And then I'm going to serve this cable on the bottom side of this cord to make sure it doesn't pull out. So that's basically how simple setting up this arrow rest is. Now in the next video we're going to talk about making a D-loop and setting everything up correctly from that position and that point forward. Sometimes people set the D-loop on first and then put the arrow rest on, but I choose to actually set this arrow rest up first because of its functioning purpose and how I want to keep it quiet. So just kind of to go back and recap what we've done here. We put the arrow rest on, we set it up to where you have a little bit of gap between the bow and the arrow rest, or the riser and the arrow rest. That way there's no vibration going on between those two pieces. I set it up square, we tightened it down. We got the elevation set to where the launcher itself is not actually touching the riser, so there's no extra noise. We've also set the center shot to where it's at about 15/16 or 7/8 distance in there from the edge of the riser to the center of the arrow. And that's basically what we've done with the arrow rest installation. And then we set the cord through the cable that is closest to the arrow rest, that's moving in a downward direction when the bow is being drawn. And that's what it takes to operate this particular arrow rest. And once we get the cord length set, then we're pretty much set and ready to go. Again, I'd like to go through every arrow rest with you guys and put them on this bow and help you in any way that I possibly can, but that's just impossible because there's so many options. But remember, this is not rocket science. Setting up these arrow rests is not as difficult as everyone wants to make it out to be. Like there's some exact science to what makes these bows hold great and shoot wonderful. These bows have a very large range of acceptance when you're talking about setting the accessories up on the bow in order to make it tune well. I've seen this stuff really messed up and still tune and shoot well. I've seen it done perfectly and it shoot well. So I think a lot of that boils right back down to the shooter, and remembering that this is an individualistic sport, meaning that you're setting this up for you and not for someone else. So there is a general way to do it, but ultimately it needs to be customizable to fit you, the shooter, and that's what this ritual offers, is a wide range of tuning ability to fit a lot of different people. So anyway guys, I appreciate you watching. Like and share if you will. Also, again, get back out to your local dealers, give these rituals a try. I think you'll be impressed with what you see. Take the shootability challenge and honor the ritual.